Today, I'm going over 7 signs someone has low emotional intelligence and what they can actually do about it. Most people hear emotional intelligence and either tune out or assume it just means being nice. But emotional intelligence isn't about being accessible, and it's definitely not about avoiding conflict. It's about awareness. It's how you handle your own emotions, how well you understand other people's emotions, and what you do when things get hard, messy, or vulnerable. And when someone lacks emotional intelligence, it shows, not just in big moments, but in everyday interactions. Communication breaks down, relationships take damage, people around them start to feel unsafe, not because they're trying to cause harm, but because they don't realize how they're coming across. That's why today I want to walk you through 7 signs that someone may have low emotional intelligence so you can start spotting these patterns in others or in yourself. And if you notice 1 or 2 of these in your own behavior, this isn't about shame, it's about clarity, because once you can see the pattern, you can start actually changing it. And that's what real emotional growth looks like. The first sign someone has low emotional intelligence is they need to be right. This one's sneaky because it often comes off as confidence, but it's not confidence, it's control. People with low emotional intelligence feel deeply threatened by being wrong. It's not just an intellectual disagreement, it hits them emotionally. So when they argue, it's not about understanding or finding common ground. It's about protecting their ego at all costs. You could show them research, data, or first-hand experience, and they'll still twist things to maintain their sense of superiority. Let's say you're having a conversation about parenting styles, and you mention something you've read about gentle parenting. Instead of listening, they scoff and say, "That's ridiculous. Kids need discipline. They're not interested in learning. They're interested in winning." At work, they might reject new ideas just because they weren't the ones that came up with them. At home, they might argue with how to load the dishwasher, not because it matters, but because being right gives them a sense of control. And when someone corrects them, even kindly, you'll see them double down, shift blame, or change the subject. They're protecting an image of being competent, even if it costs the relationship. So, how to work on it? Start by catching yourself when you feel that surge of defensiveness. Pause and ask, what am I protecting right now? Then practice admitting when you don't know something. The more comfortable you get with uncertainty, the more others will trust you, and ironically, the more respected you'll be. Real strength doesn't come from being right all the time. It comes from being willing to learn, especially when you are wrong. The second sign someone has low emotional intelligence is they cannot take feedback. If you want to spot low EQ fast, watch how someone handles feedback. Someone with low emotional intelligence often sees any form of feedback, even gentle, well-meant advice, as a threat. They feel exposed, vulnerable, like their entire self-worth is on the line. So instead of hearing it, they deflect, they criticize you, they shut down, or they pretend to agree but hold resentment underneath. So their partner says, "It really hurt me when you forgot our anniversary." A low EQ response might be, "You're so dramatic, I was busy, it's not a big deal." Instead of recognizing their partner's pain, they defend their actions. Why? Because they can't separate themselves from what they did. Or at work, someone points out a formatting error in their presentation. A low EQ response might be, "Well, you could have helped instead of criticizing," or they act offended for the rest of the day. That's because even small feedback feels like a rejection. Sometimes they'll flip it, "So now I'm the bad guy?" And suddenly you're comforting them, even though you were the one that was hurt. So here's how to work on it. The key here is listening to slow down your reaction. Feedback isn't rejection, it's data. Ask yourself, is there something useful here? Even if the delivery wasn't perfect, you can always choose what to take in and what to leave behind. But if you can't sit with any discomfort, you'll never grow past your current limitations. The third sign someone has low emotional intelligence is that they're highly reactive. Reactivity is different from passion. Passion is thoughtful, grounded, and clear. Reactivity is impulsive, unpredictable, and usually self-destructive. Someone with low emotional intelligence doesn't pause before responding. They feel something, anger, embarrassment, insecurity, and immediately act on it. They yell, they storm out, they send a passive-aggressive text, they lash out, then later wonder why people are walking on eggshells around them. Let's say they get constructive feedback in a group setting. Before even processing the comment, they say something like, "Wow, I guess nothing I ever do is good enough." It's not about understanding, they're reacting to shame. Or in a heated conversation, they might slam a door, say something cruel, or bring up something unrelated from 5 years ago just to protect themselves in the moment. Their emotions drive the car, and they don't check to see who's getting hit along the way. So here's how to work on it. The goal isn't to suppress feelings, it's to regulate them. One of the most powerful things you can do is pause, take a breath, name what you're feeling. I'm feeling defensive right now. I feel embarrassed. That alone gives you space to choose your next move instead of being hijacked by emotion. When you learn how to regulate your nervous system, your relationships will change because people will stop bracing for your next explosion. The fourth sign someone has low emotional intelligence is they don't apologize or it's insincere. They might say the words, but you can feel it. They're just trying to move on. "I'm sorry you feel that way. I said I was sorry. What else do you want?" These are not apologies, they're exit strategies. Real apologies are hard for people with low EQ because they require three things they've never been taught: reflection, accountability, and repair. That's why they rush through it, get defensive, and when asked to clarify, they might just flip it back onto you. Think about someone who made a hurtful comment in front of your friends. When you bring it up later, they say, "I was just joking, you're too sensitive." That's not an apology, it's gaslighting. They're protecting their self-image instead of acknowledging the impact. Sometimes they avoid apologizing entirely. They act extra nice instead. They buy you something, they pretend it never happened, but the rupture never gets repaired, and over time that erodes trust. So here's how to work on it. Start with this sentence: "I'm sorry for what I did. It hurt you in this way, and I take responsibility for it." Start with this sentence: "I'm sorry for the behavior. It hurt you in this way, and I take responsibility for that." Keep it simple, no excuses, no disclaimers. Then ask, "Is there anything I can do to make this right?" That's a way that you can start rebuilding trust. The fifth sign someone has low emotional intelligence is they constantly cross boundaries. They'll say things like, "I was just joking," after making a cruel comment, or "Relax, I'm just being real," after pointing out something you're insecure about. These people don't understand or don't care how their behavior affects others. People with low EQ often lack emotional attunement. They don't notice subtle discomfort, and if they do notice, they rationalize it. They're overreacting. They're too sensitive. Instead of adjusting, they double down. Let's say you tell them you're not comfortable talking about your past in a group setting. They immediately bring it up, trying to get a laugh. When you call them out, they say, "You're so uptight." That's not humor, that's a boundary disrespect. Or they'll physically invade space, hugging, touching, leaning in without reading whether someone's actually comfortable. And again, the problem becomes your reaction, not their behavior. Boundaries require empathy. Practice asking, "Was that okay?" Watch facial expressions, body posture, tone. Learn to see nonverbal cues, and most importantly, when someone says something made them uncomfortable, believe them. Don't argue. Respect is emotional intelligence in action. The sixth sign someone has low emotional intelligence is they make every conversation about them. This one can look charming at first. They have stories, energy, and seem eager to share. But over time you notice something. Every conversation leads back to them. You open up about feeling overwhelmed at work, and they say, "You think you're overwhelmed? Let me tell you about my week." You talk about losing a loved one, and they immediately share their own grief without leaving a space to process yours. Sometimes it's well-meaning, they're trying to relate, but they don't realize that emotional intelligence means knowing when to center yourself and when to step aside. And when they do ask questions, it's often surface level or rushed. They're not listening to understand, they're listening for their turn to speak. So here's how to work on it. Try this experiment. For one full conversation, don't bring yourself up unless asked. Ask follow-up questions, reflect back what the other person said. Practice being curious, not performative. When people feel heard, connection deepens. And ironically, when you stop trying to center yourself, you actually become more magnetic. The seventh sign someone has low emotional intelligence is they avoid emotional discomfort. They don't say what they feel. They avoid hard conversations, they numb with food, screens, substances, busyness, anything to not feel what's really going on. Low emotional intelligence confuses discomfort with danger, so instead of leaning into hard emotions, they escape them. They avoid grief by staying busy, avoid guilt by blaming others, avoid vulnerability by joking constantly or staying surface level, and they wonder why their relationships lack depth. They might say things like, "I don't like talking about feelings," or "It's in the past, no point in bringing it up." But what they're really saying is, "I've never learned how to hold emotional weight without falling apart." So, how to work on it? Get curious about what you avoid. Notice what emotions make you reach for your phone, what conversations you dodge, what topics make you freeze. Then take small steps towards discomfort. Journal, sit with a feeling for 90 seconds. Let someone in. Every time you do, your emotional muscles grow stronger. Emotional intelligence isn't something you either have or don't. It's a set of skills, and like any skill, it can be practiced, refined, and strengthened over time. If you notice yourself in one or several of these signs, that's a good thing because it means you're self-aware, and that's the first step. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be willing to pause, reflect, and do a little better tomorrow than you did today. If this helped you see yourself or someone else more clearly, feel free to share it, like, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you, and see you in the next one.